So we're back at your academy.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a few questions about this book that you've been speaking about and developing. What does the book cover, or what does it speak on?
Well, the book is called Pattern Drafting for Bespoke Menswear, the Imperial System. So what the title means is that it's pattern drafting for bespoke menswear clothing. The Imperial System simply means it's in inches. We do plan to release a book on the metric system, because we know that's quite popular in Europe. But the Americas, China, and Savile Row in the UK all still work predominantly in inches. So it made sense that the first book that I produced would be the Imperial System. Not to toot my own horn, but it's a book that I would have liked when I started out. I bought a lot of tailoring books. I inherited one from my grandfather, and then I bought a number of others which were produced by the Tailor and Cutter Academy. And what I found was that most of the tailoring books that I studied all dealt with cutting styles. So you could get a book that would teach you how to cut different styles of garments, but never really delved into how to cut to fit. Now you can buy fitting books, of course, and I have quite a few of those, and they have been very helpful. But again, it didn't really deal with how to actually cut for different types of figures. We call it, when we say we're cutting for a figure, we say figuration. It's the person's figuration. So there's different figuration for trousers than there is for coats. So for trousers in my book, I've identified 5 leg figuration types. The first one that I deal with is the straight leg. So a straight leg is characterized by having 2 to 3 fingers spacing between the knees when the heels are touching. A closed leg knock knee is whenever the feet are pulled together, both the thighs, the knees, the calves, and the heels touch. And that's a closed-legged figure. And then there's bow legs, which is when the feet touch, the knees don't, and the space in between the knees is 4 fingers or more. And then there is knock knee duck foot, which is my leg figuration. And that's when the calves touch, the knees touch, the thighs touch, but the feet sit at about a 45 to a 90 degree angle from each other. So it's kind of like a duck. Also known as the slew foot. And then there's knock knee pigeon toe. It is more common in women's wear. Women are typically more commonly knock knee pigeon toe than men are, but it does happen. It does occur in menswear, and that's essentially where the feet turn in. So when the knees touch, the feet, essentially the toes touch, but the heels don't, and there's a spacing at the back of the heels. Now, whenever I was running my business in New York, that's the biggest difficulty that I had with fitting trousers, was the leg figurations, and it was a lot of trial and error. Whenever I had like one drafting system that I had found in a book that seemed to work for my leg figuration. And of course at that time, like when I was even cutting trousers for myself, what I was looking for was a clean seat. It's interesting when you look at social media like Instagram, they'll always show you the front of the trousers. And in a lot of cases, if you know tailoring, you can look at the front of the trousers and think, they actually don't look that great from the front. And if they don't look that great from the front, they're a mess at the back. And so if you notice, even a lot of Savile Row companies, they'll show photographs from the front only and not the back. And the reason being is all the fitting issues on the trousers and the coat all show on the back of it and not the front. And that's why we never see the front. Like as I say, this book I got from my grandfather, there's a quote in it, like a line in it that says, like, and this book was written, like my grandfather was born in 1896, died in 1989. And like my mother was born in in 1951, and she was one of 8 children. So my grandfather started late in life. He was married about 43. So whenever he was tailoring in his 40s, this is when this book came out. So it was a turn of the century book. And it says in it there something along the lines, I'm going to paraphrase what it says, but it's along the lines of, if Savile Row customers saw the back of their trousers and the back of their coats, they'd return the garments, and Savile Row would essentially go bust. And that's like Savile Row 100 years ago. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily refers to Savile Row now. I think it's more to do with made-to-measure companies, that they're so focused on trying to make the front of the coat look nice and the front of the trousers look nice, and they never show the back of it. So the reason why garments don't fit is figuration. It's not measurements. Made-to-measure companies sort of come at tailoring from perspective, if I take enough measurements, I'll get it to fit right. That's not correct. It's not accurate at all. I even laid out my book, is that measurements only take you about 40% of the way. The rest of it is figuration. That's why the book deals with 5 different leg figure types. When it comes to trousers, you have to cut it right the first time. You can't recut the trouser, alter the trouser, after it's been cut. It's a complete recut. You scrap the pattern, you get new cloth, you try again. It's the only way. Now, of course, I've come across, there's like a fitting alteration that is so standard to made to measure, even some lower down bespoke companies where they clear the seat, essentially shorten the fork and clear the seat. And that's like a standard alteration that it actually has. If you look at some modern day drafting system, it's actually creeped into the drafting system, that they're already predicting the fitting problem that they're going to have, that they've actually put this alteration into the draft itself. And so they have this one fix. It's like a fix-all, and there's no fix-all, there's no silver bullet in tailoring. When it comes to getting trousers to fit, how you know a pair of trousers fit, right? It's nothing to do with the crease, not the hang of the crease in the front of the trouser, nothing. That's more to do with the cloth. It's that the crease of the trouser runs right through the knee, and the crease of the trouser hits the middle of the foot. That's how you know it fits on the front. So if your knees are all the way out here, the crease line's all the way out there, and it's pulling in for the center of the foot. How you know they fit on the back? The seat's clean. There's no wrinkles or pulls back there. And it's possible if you know leg figuration. Coats, on the other hand, slightly different. The way the book's laid out is that we have a number of drops. And drops have to do with the difference between the chest and the waist. So if it's a 6-inch drop, that's considered to be sort of like regular athletic. So an athletic male will have like 40-inch chest at 34 waist. Regular would be more like 5 inches or 4. Like you can be like a 40-inch chest and a 36 waist. You're holding a little bit of, body fat there. And then obviously a 2-inch drop is considered to be more portly. So the way that the system is set out in the book is that you can select a draft based on the drop. So if they're a 4-inch drop, you select a 4-inch drop or 6-inch drop. And then what you do is you actually add the figuration to the jacket. So like if it's head forward, if it's stooping, if it's erect, regular, whatever it is, you add the figuration, and the figuration is actually explained in detail. And then how to diagnose it, how to measure for it, how to look at somebody and decide, okay, this is what their figuration is and this is what they need.
So the book definitely covers a lot of the drafting to the figure or the body shape. How is that different than a lot of houses that draft off a block pattern? Can you explain what a block pattern is and why you run into problems when using a block pattern?
Yes, good question. Block patterns are based on an ideal figure. A lot like ready to wear is. If you go into ready to wear, it's based all on the fitting model that they had. Whatever fitting model they had, and whatever shoulder slope or drop or shape or height, whatever they wear, that's what the model is based off. So we don't commonly associate block patterns with Savile Row. Though there are quite a few tailors that use them. Now, they use them to maintain a house style. You know, the cutter himself has drafted his block, he understands the drafting system, and he's using it simply for the runs or to try and get to mimic that house style that is so important for brand identification. But like, to think that, you know, if you had a cutter that, you know, just used his block every time a customer came in, they used the block, you're that much different, you're not that far away from made to measure. So the difference really with Savile Row and the cutters there is they understand how to use the block in order to create an individual pattern. And yes, there are a lot of them there that don't use blocks at all. They draft straight out, but they don't draft on cloth. They draft on the paper, they create that individual pattern, and then they add figuration to it. Now there are other measurements that you can add to the drafting system. So you take the measurements on the body, you add those in, and use your system. You add your figuration to get a better fitting garment. The issue with made to measure garments is that the person that's actually taking the measurements has a limited understanding of what the block can actually do, like what they can actually do to that pattern in order to improve the fit. They don't know where the chest should be reduced from, where the waist should be reduced from. The biggest misconception in the industry is that, you know, with alteration tailors, is they think that you reduce the waist on the side. You don't. It's on the front edge. Like, you think about it, like, where is your waist? Where's your waist prominent? It's right there. It's not on the side. You know, if you need to reduce the waist down, you should be reducing the waist off the front. With a finished garment, you know, you can still reduce on the front edge. There's a little bit of trickery, if you want to call it, involved. It is explained in the book how it's done. But, you know, essentially you take the length off the front and you pass it out to the sides, then you reduce it off the side. You know, people ask, why has it taken so long for the book to be released? Or, you know, I've heard about this book, why can't I buy it anywhere? And the simple answer is it was never meant for release. The book was designed, the book was a byproduct of my online courses and my in-house courses. You know, I had originally the book, the notes were typed, the illustrations were hand drawn, they were distributed to my students. Then with a girl who came, or lady I should say, came and she could use CAD. And she started digitizing my patterns and started typing out my notes, and then offered to help me with that. When I seen the work that she'd done, I was like amazed that it looked so professional. And I asked her, you know, is there a way that, you know, we could have made this available to our students? Tees has done 19 versions of the book to date. 19. Version 19 was produced in the 19th of August. Sorry, 19th of July last year. And since then, it actually has been taken over by another, I think I was asking too much of Tees because it was dragging on for so long. So another guy who also uses CAD has stepped in, and the two of them have been working together. And, you know, once he stepped in, you know, it's like you want something that is going to answer all the questions. And the longer you teach for, the more questions that get asked and the more answers that you're coming up with. And you're just like, I didn't think about this. You know, the trousers initially, all I focused on was the leg figurations. I never really considered the drops. You know, I tried to explain if it's a 6-inch drop or if it's +2-inch waist, like how you could figure out everything else in between. But what I realized was I needed something that explained what to do if there was a 6-inch difference from the waist to the seat, if there's a 4-inch difference, a 5-inch difference, a 3-inch difference, a 2-inch difference, a +2. You know, these all needed to be in there as well. So students, you know, because you learn by, you know, testing out, trying out the drafts, and then ultimately by comparing them one to the other. The book, when it is released, you have to read it. I mean, there's no way of getting around that one. There's so many tailors, I think, that have books, you know, and they use them for reference. You need to read it. You need to read the book cover to cover, because you never really, it's difficult. Students like to just flip to one page and find everything they need in that page. As somebody who's writing a book, that is very hard to do without consistently repeating yourself. You know, my book's being translated into Mandarin, and the girl that's translating it says, no, you keep repeating yourself. And I was like, I do, because I know what students are like. I know they'll flip to one page and they'll use that page only. If all the information isn't there, you know, they're not going to get it, you know, and they're going to think, oh, this book isn't worth anything. It doesn't ask the questions that I want. You got to read it. You know, it's like if you want to know the story in a book, you got to read the story, right?
Yeah, so it seems like this book is very technical. It's very specific, especially for someone trying to go into bespoke and drafting their own patterns.